how can I best advocate for myself when I'm feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, and I have to do this in order to maintain my own personal mental health and well-being? What steps are there that I need to take in order to make sure that I'm prioritizing my needs before everybody else's? Today we're talking about self-advocacy, taking care of ourselves. We've all felt like this at one point in our life. Within the last 3 years, I have felt this extreme burnout, overwhelm, anxiety, and depression ever since the COVID pandemic started. However, I have learned how to take better care of myself by using self-advocacy when it comes to my own health and empowerment. Self-advocacy is an important part of maintaining your mental health and well-being, and I'm here to share the tips that I learned along the way that help me take better care of myself. Tip number 1, be clear on what your values, beliefs, and needs are. You have to really dial in to yourself. This is not something that somebody else is going to be able to provide you, because all of our beliefs, values, and needs are going to be different as we go along. Now listen, take the time, get into a comfortable place, sit down, have a cup of coffee, and write down things about yourself and what it is that you need in order to feel whole. So that way when you start self-advocating, it's gonna make sense because you know what those values and beliefs and needs are. What I usually ask myself is, what do I need to be happy and fulfilled? What beliefs do I hold close to myself that I will not make any adjustments to if somebody else asks me to? Once you have a good understanding of what that is, it makes making decisions so much easier when you're having to converse with other people because you understand what is important to you. Tip number 2, setting boundaries. Many of us don't even know what boundaries were. Prior to the COVID pandemic in 2020, I had absolutely this many boundaries. 0. I had none. Once you establish what your values, your needs are, you have to look into establishing boundaries. Boundaries are vital because when it comes to self-advocacy, it's going to help you protect your mental health, your well-being, and ensure that other people are honestly respecting your values and your beliefs. Communicating your boundaries is going to be a key player when it comes to effectively advocating for yourself. So when communicating these boundaries, it's important to be clear, direct, and assertive. So for example, let's say a friend is asking you to do something that doesn't align with your values or needs, and you have to be direct and say, no, I cannot do that. It's really important that you are not obligated to have to validate your values, your beliefs, and your needs. This is the same for my healthcare professionals. If you are working in the healthcare field and you were told you have to pick up this overtime, it's mandatory for everybody on the unit. No, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. Working on communicating that. It's going to be very difficult in the beginning to tell someone no, but the more that you practice it, the better it will become. Muscle memory. The more you say it, the more you practice it, the more you believe it, the easier it will be to advocate for yourself. Tip number 3 is speak up for yourself. This is one of the hardest things for us to do. We shouldn't be afraid to speak up and let it known that we're uncomfortable with the situation. When you're speaking up for yourself, it's important to remember that assertive and confident communication that we talked about in tip number 2. You want to speak clearly with a steady voice and ensure that you're communicating your thoughts and feelings effectively. You can't be that person that's like, oh, I can't speak, I can't stay late. I have babysitter issues. I have to go back home. Speak up, speak steady. I'm sorry, unfortunately, my shift ended at 7 p.m. I'm unable to stay any later, and I won't be able to help you with your staffing this evening. That's it. You don't have to provide validation. Make sure that you're staying focused on the topic without introducing non-relevant topics or distractions. If needed, practice what you're going to say beforehand. It's going to be helpful that you have a practice, you know what you're going to say, and you're going to speak it confidently. And don't forget to listen carefully. You're not always going to be able to say no, but if you've at least had that conversation with that person, listen, and they provided some value as to why they need certain things or why they need you to do certain things, it would only make sense that if you're able to compromise in the situation, that way respect can kind of go both ways. You can implement that into your self-advocacy without it having to affect, your own personal beliefs, values, and needs. Something else about communication I wanted to make very clear is that there is a huge difference between aggressive communication and assertive communication, and really you have to find the balance between these two types of communication. So an assertive way when you're speaking to somebody would be, I understand that you may have a different opinion, but I feel like this is the right decision for me. Whereas if you were to take a more aggressive route with your communication, you would be saying, you're wrong, I'm right, and there is nothing that you're going to be able to tell me otherwise. That is not the way to communicate. Taking those tips in regards to assertive communication and figuring that piece out is going to be huge. The most important tip is tip number 4, and that is to take time for yourself. Make sure that you are prioritizing your your own needs and making time to find what brings you joy. Maybe you like meditation, maybe exercise is a huge thing for you. For me, reading a book and learning something new and just taking myself out of that negative energy and putting me back into something positive has been tremendously helpful when it comes to my mental health. Don't be afraid to take some time for yourself and reset and recharge. This is why we have paid time off. Use your paid time off. A lot of people will wait until the end of the year and then they'll cash it out, and then they wonder why they're overwhelmed and they're exhausted by the end of the year because you literally never took time for yourself. Take that PDO. Also take time for daily reflection every single day. Have a self-reflection of how your day went. Have some self-reflection about how you could have done things differently, how you could have taken yourself out of that overwhelm. Whatever it is, have that self-reflection every single day, because ultimately that's going to provide you clarity on how to navigate through difficult situations in the future. I'm not going to lie to you and say that you're not going to feel overwhelmed and you're not going to have feelings of depression and anxiety, because ultimately that is the human experience. But by taking these little tips and implementing them into your practice every single day, it's going to get easier. It's not going to go away. You can't make it go away, but it's going to make it easier as you go. At the end of the day, self-advocacy is about ownership and responsibility for your life. You need to ultimately lead your life. Nobody else can live your life for you or dictate how you're going to live your life. By taking time for yourself and prioritizing your own needs, you're going to be more present, focused, and confident when it comes to advocating for yourself. It's not about doing what others want or expect of you, but rather listening and trusting within the process. I hope that this video is helpful in understanding self-advocacy and some tips to kind of help you kind of build that up as you move forward into the brand new future of you and not somebody else. If you have any questions, of course, follow me on my social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, or you could head over to my website where there's additional resources available to you there. As always, I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.